In just a moment, I'll turn it over to Chief Payne, who will have a statement, and he'll be able to answer a couple of questions, and he's got to get back to work. Please keep it orderly so that the chief can hear the question, especially since we're social distancing and everybody's so far away. Let him call on you if a couple people are shouting at once, okay? All right, Chief.
All right, again, thank you everyone for coming today. Today in Minneapolis, we saw a process where justice was served. A former police officer was held accountable almost a year ago for his actions that resulted in the murder of George Floyd. A jury of his peers convicted him. We heard testimony and evidence, or the jury heard testimony and evidence from his own police department that what occurred that day was not the culture of their department, and they're looking to reform. I've said from the beginning, almost a year ago when this occurred, every law enforcement department has to look itself in the mirror and see if we're doing things correctly. We are here to serve the community and work with the community. And what occurred there, again, he was held accountable for. We have a plan in place for the Grand Rapids Police Department, our strategic plan where safety is our number one objective. We're looking at innovative ways of keeping this community safe. And part of that, the third part of that is engagement with the community. So we're going to move forward with our plan and continue to do that. Over the course of the last year, we modified our use of force policies to reflect how our department, how we apply force and how we hold officers accountable. Chokeholds had never been, or any type of neck restraint has never been a trained tactic with the Grand Rapids Police Department. I encourage every police department across the country to make sure that they're reviewing their policies, their training, that they're up to date with the type of training that will not have a negative outcome like this particular incident did. And when it does, make sure you're holding your officers accountable. We will continue to do that here at Grand Rapids. I also want to thank the members of the Grand Rapids Police Department on short notice, just like this event is taking place. They came in and we are ready to serve this community and making sure this community is safe. So we have staffed up, and we will continue to staff up for a while to make sure that we have adequate number of officers in place to make sure we're providing a good service to the community. I'll take some questions.
I have a question, I guess I'll start. I have a few questions. One of them being, you mentioned that over the past year the department has changed its use of force policy. You talked about chokeholds, but I guess how else have you guys modified your use of force policy over the past year?
We've never trained chokeholds. It was never in our policy. What we've done, we've codified it into our policy to make it explicit. The duty to intervene was added to our policy. We've always had that as a city rule, and it's occurred where officers have intervened with officers are out of line. So we've had those things in place. We just never had it in policy. So we want to make sure that it was in policy for the public to understand that we have it, and also for our officers to understand it.
You also mentioned that you guys brought in more officers, in light of this today's event. How many officers did you guys bring in? And then you said over the next couple of days you will have more. I guess how long will that response be?
It'll depend, and we don't get into the numbers for operational reasons on the exact number of officers, but we have increased our staffing today, and we'll see how things go. And I want to say another part, last Friday we had a similar event occur at Rosa Park Circle where participants were able to march through the city, and they had very little interaction with us. So I commend that group for cooperating and working with us so that we could have a peaceful event for their safety and for the rest of the community. So far tonight, things have gone well. So working together, again, as I mentioned, we need to continue to work with the community to make sure we're having a safe community.
Why increase the number of officers brought in, as a result of today's verdict?
Yeah, we had to be prepared. We didn't know what the verdict would be. We didn't know when the verdict was going to come out, just like everyone else. There could be the potential for civil unrest, so we have to prepare for that to make sure we have adequate number of officers to be able to address those issues.
Chief, at this point, nothing happened tonight, but do you expect anything perhaps to happen tomorrow or perhaps into the weekend as far as a get-together or rally of some sort?
Yeah.
Based off of what happened today?
Right now we have nothing, but I'm encouraged. Like I said, I'll keep pointing back to Friday where that event took place, and it took place without very limited interaction with the police department. We do not discourage people for having their First Amendment right to express themselves, expressive speech. So I'm encouraged that that occurred. In previous events, we had to make arrests. So I think moving forward, there's a light there where I think we're working well with the community and the community's working with us.
Say her name! Breonna Taylor!
Chief, they think they've been targeted down there, and you've responded to this in the past, but can you speak to that? Like they're being picked on, I guess, in a
Yeah.
way.
What we want anyone that want to have that type of demonstration or expressive speech is to get a permit
Black
or
Lives
follow
Matter!
or to follow the law. And when that doesn't occur, we have an obligation to make sure for their safety and our safety and the rest of the community safety that proper warnings are given.
Justice for
And then
Breonna
we-
Taylor!
And then we continue on. And then we make sure everything's safe. So there's no one targeted. What we do, we have to evaluate every situation as it comes up.
Make it safe for Breonna Taylor!
One more question.
This is just kind of broader speaking. You know, I know in the trial we saw the Minneapolis police chief testify. I guess, you know, broader speaking, what sort of impact do you think this trial will have going forward in terms of similar trials like this, if, you know, in the future?
Well, again, as I mentioned, I think every police department has to look how their policies, their training, what they're doing, how they're holding officers accountable. This sends a clear message that there is accountability with those that elect to go outside of policy and do things illegal. So moving forward, the tragedy of his death will hopefully spur more conversations and continue community engagement.
Arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor!
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody again for coming out, especially on such
Black Lives
short
Matter.
notice. Make sure you follow GRPD on Facebook and Twitter. We'll keep media partners through those different venues updated as we make the chief or other people available for any statements, comments, or questions. Thanks again, everybody.